Hi there, thank you for joining me again to chat about this latest episode of Gold Rush. We're on season 16, episode 8. If you're a fan of the show, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and also let us know your thoughts on the episodes in the comments. You can also hit the thumbs up button as well, whatever works for you. So at Parker's crew, they had to shut down the plant at Unforgiven. We're told that they have already mined out the cut that's there. Parker says that this was supposed to last about 2 to 3 weeks, and they had gone through all that within a week. So right now they have no other cuts there to work on, so they have to shut down there. Meanwhile, we see where Dumit is trying to see if there's any other gold that he can find. The narrator tells us that he's a gold recovery expert. So he is washing out the gold catching mats from Lucifer to see if there's anything in there that he can recover. We see where while he's doing that, that Tyson came by and they had a little chit chat. Tyson asks how Parker's doing, and so Dumit's saying, well, he's carrying a lot of debt and this is not something that's typical for him. So yeah, he's under a lot of stress. And Tyson said, he has a dream of sluicing a thawed cut one day. And so they had a little joke about that because Dumit said that he dreams of being on a beach in Bahamas, but, whatever works for you. So after the little chit chat, Tyson took off, and then Dumit continued to do what he was doing. Later we see where Parker goes to see Mitch, who is stripping his first cut at Dominion Creek. With Unforgiven being done, what they're working on over there, so they're back at Dominion Creek. Parker asks him how the levels are there. He says, not too bad. He says that the levels he's been cutting in feels like pay, which is good. We're told that they had already stripped 24 ounces of the money pit down to thawed ground. And so when they got to thawed ground, they had stopped doing that, but they had also made some ditches around the edges of that strip that they had cut. And so this ditch is for water to drain as the ground thaws. And so Parker has an idea to sluice the ditches to see, if there's any gold there, and the ditches are, pretty much dried out. So he thought that they should just try that. So they're going to use another wash plant that's there. They call it the SD600. So this is a secondary wash plant that they had that was included with the purchase of Dominion Creek. And so they're going to run that one. Parker says all they have to do is connect it to the creek and get it up and running. And so the narrator tells us that Parker is now $18 million in the hole because of, with the purchase of Dominion Creek and also the operating costs so far for the season. So Mitch is getting dirt for the ditches. Mitch is getting dirt from the ditches at the money pit. And so we are told later on in the episode that they have been running that for 2 days. Shortly after we see that, the wash plant is now losing water, so they have to shut it down. So apparently the wash plant was losing water because, the water was running low in the wash plant because they were losing pressure at the wash plant. So they don't have enough pressure. They're not going to be able to get the gold from the dirt that they're running through the plant. So we see where mechanics Liam and Tyler have to get to work to figure out the problem. They find that there's a crack in the intake line, which is causing air to get sucked in. And so that affects the pressure in the line. So they figure they're going to use some silicone to try to fix it, and hoping that that would be a quick fix so they can get up and running again. And so they test that out, and water's running through the line again. So they'll see how long that lasts. It doesn't seem like they were too sure that this was going to be a permanent fix, but if that would work to get them up and running again, they're willing to just roll with that for now. So we're at Parker's place where they're going to have their weighing towards the end of the episode. There wasn't really a whole ton of stuff going on, at least not with what was shown in the show for this episode. Related to Parker's crew. So they have 2 weigh-ins this week. One is for the Unforgiven claim to see what they've recovered there now that they've finished up what they had there to work on. And then the next is for the first gold that they're going to recover from Dominion Creek. So before the weigh-in, we see that they're trying to figure out a name for the secondary plant because when Parker had gone over to talk to Tice, and they were like, which plant? And so they always refer to it as this plant or that plant. So he said that they should give it a name. I think it was Mitch who said that they should make it the name of a person. And so when Parker made it there, he said that, him and Dumit had come up with the name Bob. It's like, what? That is it? So Parker says, I like Bob, but I don't think we're going to have that plant for long, because we had gotten that equipment in the deal to be able to sell it off and recoup some money. So, I think that's not going to last very long. And he says, it's only got a few hours on it, and it should be worth close to $1 million, I think he said. So they were like, what? Go ahead and sell it. And he's like, yeah, I am going to sell it. So anyway, after they did that, we go ahead with the weighing. And so the narrator tells us that Parker wanted 500 ounces from the Unforgiven cut. And so to reach that goal, they would need to have 160 ounces in this weighing to have that cumulative 500 ounces now that they're done mining over there. They unfortunately fell very far behind because they only brought in 30 ounces in their final weighing from Unforgiven. And we're told that that is worth $60,000. So the grand total from the Unforgiven cut is only 408.95 ounces. The goal was 500 ounces. So they're just about 100 off, just rounding up. And so Parker is still very wary and, not very impressed and still very stressed about the whole money situation. Next, we go to the weighing for the money pit at Dominion. And so we're told that they ran the wash plant there for 100 hours. And they did their weighing. And so it kept going and going and going. And so I was getting excited too. It's not my goal, but I was excited to see that the weight kept going up and up. So from that 100 ounces that they worked over, 100 hours that they worked over there, they got 132.45 ounces, and the narrator tells us that this is worth about $250,000. So everyone was excited. We got a little baby smile from Parker this week at the weighing, which was great. After the weighing, we see that he had to leave, but we do see a little confessional with him where he says, that weighing from Dominion Creek is about 1.3 ounces per hour, which is really good. And so he hopes that will keep coming. And so he's hopeful for what's to come now at Dominion Creek. So I'm really happy for them. It's good to see that they have some semblance of a good news this week for this crew. This week at Duncan Creek, we see where the Ness crew is running low on their stockpile, and the narrator tells us that if they run out, they will have to shut the plant down. So now Rick needs to figure out what his next move is going to be, and he also needs to figure out what his new ground is going to be. He needs new ground to be able to run the wash plant because they have nothing, once they run out of what they have now, they won't have anything. So Rick is going to head to Riley Valley. The narrator tells us that he had already recovered 1,100 ounces of gold there in about 5 weeks, but that pit had become very dangerous to mine, and we see a flashback of what happened there. We see canyon walls caving in, and so they had abandoned that spot, and now because he's kind of desperate for a place to mine, he's going to go back and look there. So Rick was thinking of finishing up there, finish what he started there, and so we see where he went there, that, there's still rocks falling there, the place is still very unstable. And so he said he thought the place would be in better shape, but he fears for the safety of his crew, and he's just not sure if he should pick back up again. So then he moves on to scope out another spot as an alternate to mine. We see where he heads to an old pre-mine strip that is called the Bacon Strip, pre-mined cut. And so he says that in order to get over there, he needs to pass Duncan Creek. So we see where he's in his little truck trying to get across the stream, and that was not working. He started to spin out, and so he had to back up. And then we see where in this episode they pan to Morgan. She's pulling in the last bucket of the stockpile. And so we see where once they're done that, they're going to have to shut the plant down because their stockpile is done. Later, we see where Rick tries again to get across Duncan Creek, and now he has a bigger truck. Looks like the creek is pretty well deep. And it looked a little bit dangerous once once the truck entered the water and the hood was going down into the water. And it wasn't really a level spot going across that creek, so it looked a little bit dangerous, but he made it across. And so he goes to the spot that he's contemplating mining next, and he shows where the borders are. It's a good section that he plans to mine if it comes up that there's sufficient gold to do so. He says that he will pull like a 500 yard of the dirt there and test it. If he gets more than 5 ounces or more of gold from it, then they'll move their equipment there, and then this will be their new spot. So what they plan to do in the interim is just to pull the dirt there, from there to Monster Red, and test it and see what their next move is going to be. Later in the episode, we see where Rick's crew begins to work on the bulk test for Bacon Strip to see if there's enough gold there to worth their while as far as moving their operation. He was running an excavator, I think that's it, and then we hear some squeaking. I was like, oh boy, something got jacked up again. So Rick calls for Buzz and tells him that he has some oil leaking on the excavator track. And so Buzz heads over to see what's going on. Buzz locates a line that's leaking. And so he proposes that they cut that damaged section of line out, use an adapter to connect both sides of it, and then so they can get up and running. And hopefully this will work. We're told by the narrator that with the broken line, the stick cylinder does not move. And so in order for them to be up and running, they have to fix that leak so that the cylinder that needs to move will be able to move properly and as intended to be able to get the equipment to work. So we get the impression that this is a temporary fix, and Buzz hopes that it will work. Rick asks him, are you confident in your work? So he decides to test it out, and well, it worked when he ran his little test. And so he tells Buzz, good job, and you can see Buzz grinning from ear to ear. And I was just thinking to myself, like, how often do I see Buzz with that huge smile on his face? I don't think I see that very often. But it was nice to see him getting kudos for his job. Well done. Oftentimes you don't hear that very often from managers. So that was nice to see that big grin on his face. He seems to know what he's doing when it comes to these heavy equipment and being able to figure out solutions, which is nice. So later on in the episode, we see where they're pulling the mats from the bacon strip test. Everyone is hoping that there'll be something near 5 ounces. Rick says that, if they're not close to 5 ounces, they're going to be back to square one. They'll have to figure something out. If it's not quite 5 ounces, but it's close, he's going to have a tough decision to make. So at the end of the episode, we see where they're doing their weighings again. They have 2 weighings also as well this week, just like Parker's crew. One is for the pay pile that they're just finished out, and then the next one is for the test strip that they're going to run on this bacon strip claim that they might potentially mine. So this week, they need at least 10 ounces to cover costs. And when they did their weighing, they brought in 12.3 ounces, which is worth, we're told, almost $25,000. So they made their goal for that. And when they came to the gold from the bacon strip, it does look to me like a good bit of gold. But when they did their weighing, it only came in at 4.66 ounces. So Rick feels that this is close enough for him to pull the trigger on bringing the equipment there and beginning to mine, which I feel like that's a good decision because it's better than not doing anything. They don't have an alternate spot to mine. And so, yeah, they'll have to take their chances with that. And it's close enough where there's a high probability that they'll be able to bring in a decent amount of gold each week, so that they have something promising on their end as well. So Tony is back on the scene this week, so I was interested to know what has developed since the plant shut down the last time. So we're told by the narrator that his Paradise Hill operation was shut down due to a broken trommel. And then the Indian Creek, we know, is at a standstill because the inspectors came by the last time and said, I guess he misinterpreted what was allowed in the license. So we're told that it's 2 months into the season and he still hasn't brought in any gold. Today, he's on a call to hopefully resolve the issues with the shutdown. We're told the last time that he could only mine 1 acre in the new license versus the 15 acres that he was planning on sluicing. And so we get a flashback on the issues that happened the last time with the license and him having to tell Minnie the bad news. We weren't privy to the actual phone call with the inspectors, but we see where he calls Minnie to deliver the news. And he tells her that they can sluice everything that they have previously stripped on the other license, but they're not going to be able to strip anything new. So they can get going again. And also I wondered, what was the error? Was the error with the inspector's interpretation, or was this decision due to an appeal? We don't really know. The narrator just says that the authorities had decided that they can sluice the 15 acres, but they cannot strip any new ground. Either way, it's good that they're able to get some work done because, of course, the other place is at a standstill. Tony says that they're behind sluicing on 5, 6 to 7 weeks. That just made me chuckle because he's like, 5, 6, 7 weeks. Who knows? It's a long time. Who cares? So now they need to get the shaker plant up and running. They're welding things to finish up and some other things. They got to hook the pump up so they can recycle the water. They will use the water from the pumping pond, and then the wastewater will go into a settlement pond. Apparently the dirt is supposed to fall to the bottom, and then at the end of the pond it's supposed to be mostly clear water, and so they'll pump that back to the wash plant. But I thought a few episodes back that they had been putting this pump system together, those long pipes that they needed to be able to run the water. I thought they were done with that, but apparently not, or maybe they had put that on hold when the inspectors came. But anyway, we see where Mike is working on finishing up the lines to be able to run the water and be able to pump them where they need to. So we see where this is done, and Monica is bringing the first bucket of dirt to run. We see where the dirt's moving along the conveyor belts, and as I was watching, I was thinking like, oh my goodness, those are some big rocks. Having seen the last episode where some rocks caused some huge damage for Rick, I was like, they're doing the rock thing again too. Not long after I was thinking that in my head, we see some big rocks falling off the belt and started tearing some stuff up, and so they had to stop the plant. Apparently, the welders didn't weld the back plate on it, so when the rocks fell, it fell off and landed on the sluice box, and that stopped the riffles from catching gold, and so there's a lot of debris and stuff hanging out. And so it's another fiasco at Tony's place, and yeah, as usual, something has to happen. So they lost, I think, a half a day or so due to this error, due to the guy not doing what he was supposed to do. Monica said, you hire somebody for one thing and they can't get it done. So apparently this should have been done, but it wasn't done. So Tony was not happy. Monica says that there's no welders on site, none in Indian Creek at the moment. So Tony has to get going on working on things and welding the stuff back together himself. Out of the blue, we see where it starts to rain. Monica says this is typical Yukon weather. 1 minute is super hot and dry. Next minute is torrential rain. Anyway, they kept going and they got the plant up and running again after Tony did his welding thing. And so Tony is finally having a good day after he got things welded together. They started running the wash plant again and things were going smoothly after that. We get towards the end of the episode and we see where it's weighing time for them as well. Mike brings out the scales, and so we see where there's Tony, Monica and her daughter, and Minnie there. They're going to do the weighing. So we're told that they had ran the wash plant for about 22 hours and they should get 60 ounces of gold. The actual weighing numbers are 61.88 ounce, which equates $120,000, which is nice. Minnie says it's a drop in the bucket and she's looking forward to many more drops in the bucket, essentially. So the Beets are finally in the goal. Everybody's in the goal now. Yay, the season is really off to a start. So I believe that's all for this episode. There wasn't a whole lot. Nothing super, super duper exciting. But let me know your thoughts on the episode. Also, like, comment, and subscribe.